Okay, let's get started. I can see lots of people coming in, so let's begin the event. So welcome everybody. Welcome to National Geographic Traveller Travel Geeks. Tonight's event is titled Bears, Beers and Beyond in Estonia, so there's quite a lot of ground to cover there. My name is Jo Fletcher-Cross. I'm a contributing editor at National Geographic Traveller. And in a minute, I'll introduce you to the panel who we're going to be talking to tonight, but I'll tell you a little bit about the event as well. So obviously, we're talking about Estonia this evening. Estonia is not a destination I've actually been to, so I'm thrilled to be doing this event because it's great to find out about places that you haven't been to, isn't it? Especially now. I have done a lot of research for this event, and the more I research, the more I want to go. And I'm pretty certain that by the end of this hour, you're also going to be booking trips to Estonia. So today you can chat. There's a chat function. I can see that lots of you are already jumping in there to say hello. Please jump in there, tell us where you're from. We'll also have members of the National Geographic Traveller team in there. They'll be posting sort of links and chatting, and anything you want to say, let us know in there. There's a Q&A function. That's just beside that. If you've got questions for the panel, we'll do a Q&A towards the end of the event. Please put them in there just so I see them. If they're in the chat, they get a bit lost. So if you put them in the Q&A, I will definitely see them there. So I will tell you how the event works. If you haven't been to one of our Travel Geeks events before, we used to have them in rooms around the country, but now we're having them in my house. So welcome to my house and welcome to the panel's houses. We're very pleased to have you here. We're going to talk for about 40 minutes or so. I've got lots of questions for our panel, and then for the last 15 minutes or so we'll take questions from you. So that's how it's going to work. Really easy, really straightforward. And let's get started. Let's introduce the panel. So we've got Jan Lar Teopold. That wasn't right, was it? But I'm told there were two vowel sounds in there that aren't in English, so I've done my very best. Jan, thank you. Welcome, Jan. Jan was born and raised in the Estonian capital of Tallinn, and proud to be a fourth-generation dweller in the city, which I think, I mean, I don't know how common that is in Tallinn. We'll talk about that, but it seems pretty extraordinary to me to be able to trace your history back. So I'm really keen to tap into all that knowledge. He's been a guide for almost 20 years and leads everything from city walks, 10-day camping trips to VIP events. However, his true passion is the old town of Tallinn. So if you've got questions about the old town of Tallinn, Jan is your man. He's currently studying for a BA in Cultural Heritage and Conservation at the Estonian Academy of Arts, which sounds incredibly impressive, to further his knowledge about its country's past. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Jan. I'm really excited to talk to you. Definitely. We've also got Jamie Lafferty here this evening. Jamie is the only one of our panel who isn't in Estonia at the moment, but he has been to Estonia quite recently. So he's a writer and photographer from Scotland, and his words and pictures have been published all over the place in the New York Times, Sunday Times, The Guardian, Outside, Financial Times and Time Out, and obviously National Geographic Traveller. He is named the Travel Media Awards 2020 Consumer Writer of the Year. He's recently returned, like I say, from an assignment in Estonia for National Geographic Traveller, and his feature will be in our January-February 2022 issue, so look out for that. We've also got Christian Piaska. Christian's a sommelier and restaurateur from Tallinn, formerly a competitive sommelier, which I must say it sounds incredibly exciting. He now runs 2 restaurants in Tallinn, loves a broad spectrum of drinks, as do I, from traditional wines to more adventurous bottlings like beers and ciders, handmade lemonades, kombucha. Christian follows his passion for interesting beverages by taking part in small-scale gypsy brewing, cider making, and whiskey distilling. And you better believe I've got lots of questions about this. And last but by very much not least, we've got Pip Rooks, who is an avid nature lover, and that's why I'm most excited tonight. I think, you know, we know Estonia maybe as a city break destination for Tallinn, but we really want to explore the wildlife and the incredible landscapes of Estonia tonight as well, which I think will really inspire you. Pip grew up exploring the meadows and forests around his family's country house, and studied social and cultural anthropology. Took a different path after that and worked as a guide in the areas around about Tallinn. In 2017, he joined Estonia's biggest nature tour company, Nature S, and went back to college to study environmental conservation. So with Nature S, Pete has had the opportunity to find out more about the nature of his homeland and share his knowledge with other like-minded people, and we're very grateful that he's joined us to share his knowledge with us tonight. So that's our panel for this evening, an incredible expert panel from Estonia. So yeah, really pleased that you can be here with us tonight. So I'm going to start asking you some questions, and the first one I'm going to ask, I'm going to open it up to everybody. You know, I'll ask specific questions to some of you, but I've got a specific question for everyone at the moment, and it's about Estonian culture. You know, Estonia, I mean, I'm not saying it's a mystery to the audience. You know, we've seen it. Some people will obviously have been there. Do let us know in the chat if you've been to Estonia. But how would you describe Estonian culture, the Estonian people, the kind of land itself? Anybody like to start me off on that?
Well, maybe the also the silence in the air at the beginning was something that would contribute to what we Estonians are actually. Difficult to make the start, and you know, when the start is difficult, it also means that it's difficult to finish. So it might take some time to get us along, but then when we're along, we are there fully. But regarding the history, I would say, you know, we've been taken over by many cultures. We've had Swedes, Danish, we've had Russians, obviously here for quite a long time, Germans. So this actually means that we're really lucky still to have our own language and the culture. To me, it feels like we've been able to absorb the best out of those cultures while still being in Estonia, while still remaining Estonians, which is something quite unique.
Thank you so much, Christian. That's a really interesting answer. Would you say Estonians are modest, typically modest? Is that something that I'm picking up there?
In a way, maybe it's considered part of like being polite, being modest. So that's also why we take our time. But yeah.
Okay, well, I'm hoping to draw you all out now. Jan, can I ask you, what would you say? What does Estonian culture mean to you?
Well, Estonians, I think in the past have a long time not even been aware that we are a nation or that we belong together, being in serfdom and then being basically like a geopolitical turning style over here. And I think over the last 100 years since we first gained our independence and were occupied again, we have grown very aware of it. So Estonians are actually very modest, as Christian said, but also we are very, very happy to hear that people are talking about us, that we are being noticed. So every time somewhere in foreign press or in international news, Estonia is mentioned, mostly in a positive way. We're very happy.
Fantastic. And Pit, would that sum up Estonian culture to you? Does it mean anything different to you?
No, Christian and Jan summed it up pretty good. I maybe just add that for me personally, I think Estonian culture is a bit, at least now, it's like a mix from the East and from the West. I myself, I was born in the Soviet time still. So it's, how to say, I think it's still visible and also in the minds of people that were somewhere in between the East and the West.
Okay, thank you very much. It's really good to get an idea of just how you feel about Estonia and where it sits in the history and culture of Europe and surrounds. I think that helps us get an idea. So what I want to move on to, I'll come back to culture and in a more general and in a more specific sense. What I really want to talk about is something that is a big part of any trip to anywhere, and that is food. So let's talk about Estonian food. As I say, I haven't been to Estonia. I was very fortunate to be invited to an event at the Estonian Embassy in London quite recently, where Christian was involved and served us some incredible drinks, including a gooseberry wine that I think about every day. And I didn't know what to expect from Estonian cuisine. I had no idea. And I Googled it and I still didn't really know what to expect. And then it was incredible. The food that we ate was astonishing. We talked a lot about ingredients, but I want to, Christian, I'm going to open this to you because I think this is your area of expertise. How would you describe Estonian food to someone who has never eaten Estonian cuisine?
Well, it is not as easy answer actually, because I mean, obviously we have our history like every other country, but we are really, really poor in our heritage, meaning that what we ate 100 years ago, we sometimes eat, but I would say in restaurant culture, Estonian food is redefining itself. one of our restaurants works farm to table concept, and what we try to achieve is having this new Estonian food built on the qualities Estonia can grow those days. So part of it is foraging, part of it is more dairy farms around us, and I mean, obviously we have the from the heritage the salting, curing, fermenting things, but then again we have beautiful fish around us. We have the animals in the forest and in the farms. So in a way, we have the abundance of goodies around us that we are doing our best today to discover in the best way, you know, not to overrule them, to be nice and polite to them, and at the same time to keep it exciting. So it is not an easy answer maybe, but also the situation is more related to that. It is just 30 years of independence, and I would say maybe 15 years in high gastronomy for us as a country, and even the past 10 years has been roller coaster of developing in a Estonian restaurant scene.
Amazing. And you talked a bit about foraging there, that it's a big part of Estonian cuisine and Estonian culture. Would you say that it is a traditional thing to forage? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And is there a safe way that visitors can experience that?
Well, it's absolutely safe. I mean, first of all, maybe the viewers don't know, but we're also a home country for Bolt. And for example, today it's very easy just to take a car from the city center, to take a Bolt car, and it's rented immediately, and you just have a 30 minutes drive and you are actually on the countryside, and you just take whatever forest you see and you pick in. And when it's the season, it's not that difficult to see berries, mushrooms. Obviously, you need to maybe work in a bit to know what you can eat and what you're not supposed to eat. But yeah, it's very simple.
And can you, Jan, do you go with tours of foraging? Is that something that you would offer?
No,
Guides?
that would be, I have never done it, not even on a private, although that would be okay, kind of. But Estonian has this everyman's right. It's based on this Norwegian example, or Scandinavian, that for your own needs, you can go to the forest and forage stuff you want. Blueberries, crab, and mushrooms, and whatever you can find. But I think like this commercially, kind of like taking a group somewhere would be questionable. Although nobody would tell anybody you can't go, because it's part of the right is also the obligation to leave nature unharmed. So when you go there, not supposed to destroy the forest, like dig up some moss or anything, and even going fishing in Estonia is quite easy. You can literally buy the fishing license via SMS or via app nowadays, probably also. So it's
so perhaps the best way for a visitor to experience the foraged food of Estonia is to get to a restaurant that serves foraged food. There's quite a few, I think. Christian, am I correct that there are restaurants that specialize in foraged food?
I would say we have some the restaurants that are working with Estonian ingredients. They all forage here and there. Some more, some a bit less, but you can see foraging in our restaurants. But I mean, also there are obviously tours where you can just have a tour guide and show the forest. So I would say it's rather easy actually. When you come for a couple of days to Tallinn, you don't even have to spend actually change the place you live in. I mean, you can all go out from Tallinn and then have your meal in a fancy restaurant later on.
Amazing. Okay, that's really good to know. It's great that you could get out into the countryside properly so quickly. Jamie, can I ask you? You came back recently from Estonia, and I think you did some foraging while you were there. Am I right?
I did, yeah. And I guess that was my first time doing it as well. On the way, it was down in the sort of southwest of the country, close to Suma National Park, and it was sort of peak foraging time. So there's quite a lot of serious people with high-vis jackets and massive IKEA bags raiding the forests for chanterelles. I had a guide at the time, and so he sort of showed me which ones were safe to eat and which ones to avoid. And it was quite fun. It was kind of like a computer game. sort of like stomping through a forest trying to find, like, instead of collecting coins like Mario or gold rings like Sonic the Hedgehog, I just kept collecting mushrooms. Mushrooms, by the way, which really sadly, unfortunately, I don't really like mushrooms. I didn't have the heart to tell my guide that. So he got a huge bag of mushrooms to take back home. But no, it was actually quite fun and quite sort of weirdly addictive. Unfortunately, here at home, if you know go around picking up mushrooms, people think that you're only looking for ones to make you hallucinate rather than actually just eat like a normal person. So I'm not sure it's something I'm going to take up here in Scotland, but it was great fun for the few days that I was in Estonia.
And what did you think of Estonian cuisine when you were there? Did it surprise you?
Yes, it did. I mean, I was going in with a pretty poor base knowledge as well. It actually reminded me I mean, I was only there for 5 days, so it's a little bit difficult for me to form conclusive opinions on the whole thing, but it did remind me a bit of Scottish cuisine in that, you know, we've got very good produce here in Scotland, but we're not very good at cooking it, typically because other people were, how can we say, buying our produce or stealing it, as it's also known. And so we've got lots of great produce here in Scotland, but we haven't really until recent years had very good recipes. And from what some people told me in Estonia, it seems to be the same thing, you know, that there's great, amazing produce available in the land and in the water, but it's only more in the last maybe 10, 20 years that people have got a bit more creative and inventive with their cooking of it.
Thanks, Jamie. What would you say? I'm aware that I'm talking to you quite a lot, Christian. We'll move on to the other guys really soon. But if you were in Tallinn, for instance, where would you recommend that people eat? Where are the best places to eat in the capital?
Well, I mean, there's plenty to choose from, but as every city, one can make their homework. So, I mean, if you want to have a fancy high-class meal, I think our top-notch fine dining restaurants, which are NOA, N-O-A. Then there is a very particular letter in Estonia, which is O with dots. We call it Ö, and that represents the name of the restaurant. And you can see a lot of Estonian goodies over there, made by great friends. And then we have 180 Degrees by Matthias Dieter, German chef, Michelin stars, living in Tallinn and making really great food. If you feel more like a casual, maybe actually, I can also say that you can see my notes at the moment from Angelique on the side. But then on sustainable side, we have Fotografiska, amazing stuff, and then also our restaurant working farm to table sustainable way. And then if you want to have this really down to earth casual, go to Põhjala tap room with some great beers and really good easy food. Yeah.
That's a lovely segue because I wanted to talk about beer. So, you know, we put it in the title. We're like beers and beyond. So does Estonia have, what's the kind of brewing scene like? If you're interested in kind of microbreweries, is it a good destination to visit?
Well, actually, you know, we had a big law change in 2014, which made it much more easier for the small breweries to come up. So in 2014, we had 2 major breweries taking 95% of the market, and then a large brewery taking 5% of the market. Today, we are supposed to have the highest number of craft brewers per capita. It all exploded in 14. What makes it huge in terms of numbers per capita is also that we have a lot of gypsy brewers. So meaning also, for example, our restaurant, we do not have our own brewery, but we brew beers because we have friends that have brewery. So we rent their facilities to make our own. And this is something really unique, that we have a lot of those gypsy brewers that actually use the facilities of the others, which at the same time make the business and much more complex and fun. So at the moment, you can have a really nice brewery tour either around Tallinn, or if you want to go in the countryside, the same.
Okay. And what about if you wanted to go beyond beer? You know, what else is interesting in Estonia to drink?
Well, I mean, after beer, once there is obviously a cider, and our craft cider has worked the same way up really beautifully. I mean, we have beautiful Method Champenois ciders available, and also as we're really Nordic, the apple variation here is really good to make a great cider. And I'm very happy with the quality, and especially if we go like to the world class, when we go to the ice ciders, I mean, they are really world class. But then we are also rediscovering making wine, making berry wines has been historical part of what we are. We kind of forgot about it after the independence, but now we have actually even our own Estonian wine trail, which is really nice possibility to travel around Estonia, see the different wineries. Some of them use actually grapes to make wine, and some of them use berries. Okay. And I would say that quality has been improving each year, and maybe was quite challenging 4 or 5 years ago, but today we are happy to serve them in our restaurant.
That's amazing. What kind of grapes are growing, Christian? What can you grow in terms of grapes in Estonia?
Well, they are hybrids, so we don't have any Sauvignon Blanc or Riesling. But what we have is, for example, Regent, Solaris. So yeah, they're hybrids that you can see usually in the Nordic countries. And just to finish it up properly, the small batch distilling has grown a lot as well. As you mentioned, we are doing our own whiskey. So we have a small cooperation with a small distillery. And now we have those beautiful distilleries all around the country. And actually, we also obviously have this big passion for gin as well. So, for example, our restaurant only sells locally made gins, and we have more than 10 available, and it is just very small percentage of the gins being produced in Estonia, and really like high quality artisanal gins.
Amazing. Jamie, did you try any Estonian whiskey when you were over?
I did not. I was on a work assignment. Why on earth would I be drinking?
Of course, I'm sorry.
No, I just didn't get that far along. I did have some very nice beers though. The selection was kind of dizzying. Like it was a bit hard to. I couldn't tell you what my favorite one was purely because there's so many. Especially the guys might need to help me out with this. But down in a sort of recently refurbished area that was old Soviet buildings, there's a big brewery in there now with a cool tap room. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. That's it. That's the one. And they had I think like something like 16 taps, but all with different beers, and some of them were just guest ones and seasonal ones. Inconveniently, my guide didn't drink, and I couldn't just sit there alone getting absolutely smashed on the Estonian beers. But I could have done. I've sort of got it earmarked for next time. But it was it was like much like the food. It was a surprise. I mean, I kind of lazily hadn't really expected that it would be quite. I mean, there's nothing like that here in my home city of Glasgow, for example, and so it was a much better selection than I'm used to.
Isn't the Brewdog from Scotland?
Yeah, we don't really talk about Brewdog. They're villains. Officially they're not villains. They're from Dundee as well. They're originally from Dundee. So they've done very well. They've done a very sort of corporate expansion of microbrewing, but they don't. Everything's done sort of. I don't think they don't strike me as being so experimental anymore. Not the way that was happening in Estonia. Perhaps like maybe 10 years ago they were a bit like that, but now they're much more about contracts and legal cases, from what I understand.
Jan, could you just repeat the name of the place that Jamie was talking about there?
I can tap it in the chat if you would.
That would be good. I was going to attempt to say, oh, thank you. Somebody put it in there. Now, I'm going to move on a little bit because I can see in the chat there's a lot of sauna chat going on, and I think it's time we address that. It's tempting to think, Christian, that you are in a sauna. I don't think you are. You might be. But tell us, who wants to tell us about sauna culture in Estonia? It seems to be a big thing, and maybe a little bit different from other countries that have a big sauna culture, like Finland. Is that right?
Yeah, there is definitely something called Estonian sauna. Like people would say there's sauna, but then we know there's Russian sauna, there's Estonian sauna, there's a Finnish sauna. The Swedes have also their kind of sauna. I'm not even sure, maybe Latvians claim also. But like sauna, just to begin the talk, sauna is very ancient old tradition in Estonia, so that has survived up until today, maybe even revived a bit, but it never really, I think, lost its kind of popularity. But what we have become to cherish is this traditional Estonian smoke sauna, which is basically picture a sauna that's heated with wood, but it doesn't have a chimney. So all the smoke stays inside the room, and the room gets really dark and really hot. So at the one point, after 4 or 5 hours of heating it, you let the fire burn out. You open the windows, you let all the smoke come out, and then you have it. Then you close the windows, and in half an hour it will be really hot. So about 100 degrees, a bit more. I don't know how much is in Fahrenheit, but being in there, going in there is definitely something that even I, who have done it quite a few times, still every time it blows me away. It has this different kind of heat, and you can still smell this slight aroma of smoke on your skin. Many days later, when you're taking a shower, you still feel like you're back there inside the sauna.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm glad you clarified that you put the fire out and then people go in. I was really worried that you were all kind of smoking each other to death in Estonia. That sounds amazing. Is as a visitor, is it easy to kind of access a sauna in Estonia? Would you be able to do that would it be quite straightforward?
Yeah, well, regular sauna or like wooden heated sauna, you can even go in a normal spa where you have like 5, 6 different kinds of saunas, and there's always some wooden also. But having a smoke sauna is definitely something that involves also the risk of it burning down. So you need to have it a bit further away from, let's say, bigger buildings, and usually it's on the countryside, and there are like even special sauna little villages or like entrepreneurs who rent out their sauna for that. So you can find them definitely online also.
Fantastic. I just saw someone say, let's all go to a smoke sauna for New Year's Eve, and I'm up for it, guys. Let's go all.
Very good.
There's a few hundred of us, but we'll take turns. So this is good. We've drawn people in. You can have incredible beer. You can have all this amazing foraged food. You can have a sauna. So let's imagine we've drawn people in, and we're going to start planning our trip to Estonia. Pip, I'm going to ask you this question because we haven't come to you yet. What would you say is the best time to plan a trip to Estonia? When's the best time to come?
No, well, I would say what I think my favorite times are, and it would be probably from April until end of June, mid-June, and then again September, October. But that's just from the point of looking at wildlife, I would say. Okay. And that's also not the most touristic season. So I think you get the best experience of Estonia because there are not many people around. Spring is in the air or autumn is in the air, and I would say these are the best times.
Lovely. See, that sounds very appealing. Would Jan, Christian, would you agree that these are the best times to come? Or?
Well, actually, I mean, I think you have to determine what you want to do, because I'm actually urging everybody to go out of the season. I mean, summer is obviously beautiful everywhere, but I actually I'm in love with our springs and autumns. I mean, especially late spring, early autumn. But then yet again, winter, even the old town is magical. So, I mean, it's not maybe always about, if you come to Estonia, it's not to experience what Spain is about. So be prepared maybe sometimes for harsh weather. I mean, I'm happy to go to Scotland for the tough weather while knowing about it. So Estonia, I mean, you just have to wear right clothes and then it's perfect.
Do you get a lot of snow in the winter? What's the snowfall like?
Well, those days, I think nobody really knows what the weather is like anymore. But yeah, usually January till March, you find really beautiful snowy times here. And every time we keep our fingers crossed that Christmas brings snow. Well, not always, but still mainly yes.
Okay, it sounds good. And there are Christmas markets, I think, in Estonia, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this is considered the most beautiful one in Europe for multiple times. This is something quite spectacular to visit.
Is that in Tallinn?
That's in Tallinn.
Yes, in the center of the old town.
Okay, that sounds lovely. Jan, is that something you'd recommend visitors to Tallinn do come at Christmas?
Definitely, Christmas time is something that is kind of out of season. And since it's kind of family holiday, people do not travel that much in that time. And it would be nice if there would be snow. We can't guarantee that, but you know, if it's snowing and if it's the Christmas market, it's picturesque. It's like in a fairy tale. But it's probably even more important that the tradition of Christmas trees, you can come and celebrate over here, because the first Christmas tree I think recorded was in Riga, but the first decorated Christmas tree recorded was in Tallinn. So
Wow,
basically, the tradition started here up in the north.
amazing. So you're like, yeah, we take the tree, it's nice, we're making it better. So this is very appealing. Yeah. I noticed somebody just popped up in the chat saying, why aren't we going in the summer? Am I right in saying it's lovely in the summer, but you know, come at other times too?
Come at summers. Come at winter.
Don't avoid the summer, people, it's fine. Yeah, it's just really, really lovely every other time.
Yes, let's put it like this, that this year the summer has been, in Tallinn at least, definitely less crowded, because usually we do get a lot of visitors in the summer anyway. But in the outside of Tallinn, I think it has changed a bit less when visually. But inside of Tallinn, you have quite a few cruise ships that are coming. So usually we're quite busy in the summertime, but in the last few years, rather not.
Okay. And I mean, the thing about that Estonia is full of space, isn't it? There's a lot of space for people. The cleanest air in the world, according to the WHO. I think that was the claim. Certainly very, very clean air, much cleaner than my filthy London air outside, I think. So that's quite appealing. If you were coming, Dan's like, I love the city. If you were coming to Estonia, let's think about an itinerary. I think people probably know, Tallinn is a great city break destination. What else would you do if you wanted to experience Estonia, not just a weekend in Tallinn? What would you put together as an itinerary? Where would you not want to miss? Pip, what about you? Where would you, if someone was coming to see beautiful Estonia, where would you recommend?
Well, there are so many places, but I would take at least 2 weeks, maybe a month, maybe 2 months. And maybe start off from the west coast, visit the town of Haapsalu, which is culturally really beautiful. It's more like the summer town, lots of cafeterias. It has also a promenade, so the sea is near. You get everything. You get culture, you can watch wildlife from really close distance. And yeah, it's a really nice place. From there, I would go probably, I think, to Hiiumaa Island, which is the second biggest island. Yeah, the islands I think are a must go when it comes to Estonia. Hiiumaa and Saaremaa.
There are thousands of islands, aren't there?
There are thousands of islands. Yeah, there are. I think they counted them 5 years ago or 4 years ago. It was 2,222 islands.
That's a very convenient number.
I think they won't count them again.
No, that's enough. Yeah, that's enough to visit, isn't it? Jan, what would you agree? Are there places that you would recommend people visit that haven't been mentioned?
Definitely. The two big islands are definitely worth a visit, and also so are the smaller ones. But there is one very special small island called Kihnu, which is even in the UNESCO Intangible World Cultural Heritage, with the traditions and this kind of women-led lifestyle that they have over there, and the very, very colorful skirts that they're wearing. And these skirts have the meaning that the ladies are actually knitting their life story inside there, like who are the when they had children and when they married, and so on and so on. So it's and there's definitely good fish on the islands.
Okay.
Small fish and dried fish and fish soup and
a lot of fish.
A lot of fish.
But that sounds fantastic. That sounds like it would be a really great place to experience Estonia outside the city. That sounds ideal. Christian, would you agree? Are there any other places that you would recommend?
Well, islands, I agree a lot, and I like that Jan, you brought out Kihnu, which is fantastic. But then I would say also going to the southern Estonia is a great experience. I would take a small trip through northern coastline, then turn into Lake Peipus, where we have beautiful onion road with also home-run restaurants, and then finish it up in the landscapes of the southern Estonia, which is, I mean, Estonia usually is quite sleek, but there we have small slopes and hills and beautiful lakes, and you have beautiful hiking trails over there. I also posted the link from where you can see most of the public hiking trails, and also there are those really cool huts in the forest which are really cheap to rent, and basically they're like cool experience to go even in the winter, because you can actually find wood to burn, and it's still like very nomadic, so you don't have any water or anything, and you don't have electricity. It's just enjoying the stillness of the forest. And this would be beautiful to have a little camping in the southern Estonia, and then come back through Tartu, where we have a amazing museum, really a large version of showcasing what Estonia is about, Estonian National Museum. And then nice way back to Tallinn, having maybe little stop at Põhjaka Manor, where the coolest guys are making very simple style Estonian food. Have a little spoil for yourself, and then you're back at Tallinn.
Hey, this sounds lovely. I'm very much up for this. That sounds great. Jamie, I think you went to southern Estonia, didn't you? Is there anywhere not been mentioned so far that you would recommend? Or
I didn't hear.
I
don't think I heard anyone mentioning Pärnu and the coast down there. I was down there for a couple of days and visited the Suma National Park from there as well, and that was great. You know, I was there experiencing bog-walking, which was again another new thing for me. And so that part of the country was pretty great. I really liked the time I had down there, and the guide Ivar was very funny as well. So he showed me around, and I think if you like the outdoors and you want to get a sense of how sparsely populated the country is, then that's that would be a fine place to go. People kept telling me that it's the same size, or it's slightly larger than the Netherlands, but it only has 10% of the population.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the big revelation, those people were wrong, because it's actually only 7.5% of the I was putting in a piece, so I fact checked it, and it's even more sparsely populated than that. Yeah, so as is a fraction of the people, and because you have so few people, then you get more wildlife, and you get a less corrupted natural landscape as well. So I loved all that stuff.
Amazing. That really puts it into perspective. Actually, that's really good. And you brought up bogs there, which takes me nicely to my next question. The bogs come up a lot when you look at Estonia. We've got some amazing photographs of some. How easy is it to actually hike through a bog, and why? Why would you hike through a bog? What's the feeling?
You mean aside from because a national newspaper has commissioned you to do that?
Yes, for the normal visitors to Estonia.
well. First of all, I mean, how easy is it to walk through the bog? It's easier if you're wearing the special shoes, which are essentially snowshoes. And then there are, in the national park, there are sort of dedicated walkways if you fancy just sticking to the tracks. So the thing with sphagnum moss or peat moss is that it's quite delicate. So you can't really, if you cut it, for example, for peat, for fuel, or for smoking whiskey, like we do here in Scotland, then it grows back incredibly slowly, and its sort of properties are only being better understood now, after centuries of people using it and abusing it without really giving it much thought. So what you can do when you get there is you can don these huge red shoes and head out across this what's weirdly acidic land. And I guess why would you do it? I mean, I think that it's a really unusual environment. It doesn't really support trees, so you can spot that a bog's coming because the trees stop suddenly. Like, remember in the second Lord of the Rings film where the woods just sort of stand there like a wall? That's exactly what happens at the edge of a bog. They just stop once the pH changes a certain amount in the land. It just stops completely. And instead, what you get out there is very, very peaceful. And on the edge of the bogs as well, you get a lot of berries. Like when we were just walking around, I think there was 7 different types of berry. So that was lunch sorted, which was good. And then, we eventually found some pools in the center of them. As you approach them, the land gets really loose. It's really strange. It's like being exceptionally drunk. I imagine if I'd had one of each of the drinks in that microbrewery, that's exactly how I would have felt. Like everything was swaying, and I felt like I was going to fall over. And then we had a little wild swim in the pool as well, and
amazing.
It was bracing.
I imagine it was. Yeah, it would really wake you up.
Yeah, it
And obviously we've talked about the wild landscape here, and we obviously want to talk about the wildlife as well. Pip, what can you see in Estonia? There's an extraordinary number of animals that you can see in Estonia, aren't there? What can you see and where?
Well, yeah, we got lots of them. Just to say, we got first, I would say Estonia is a great place to watch brown bears, because for such a small country, we got now, they say, about 1,000 brown bears. We got wolves, although wolves, it's really difficult to see. If you come to Estonia, I would not recommend, or not, I would recommend, but it's really difficult to look for wolves. But brown bears you can see from a height. Elk, you have to, I think, find a suitable guide, or then we got seals, gray seals, ringed seals. It's also possible. Really good places for these are the two islands. I think there are several people who do tours there.
Of course.
And we got, of course, we got lots of birds. Estonia is a really great place to look for birds. There's a migration going along the coast, spring, autumn, and of course we got lots of forests. So it's a really great place for forest birds. And I think the best thing about Estonia is that you got everything really close. You got the coast, you drive 5 minutes, you got a really big old forest, you drive again 5 minutes and you're in a beet bog. So everything is really close by. And
yeah, that does come across from everything that everybody's saying, is that it's quite easy to get from one kind of landscape to the other. Is it easy can you use public transport in Estonia?
Yeah, you can. I would say by train, there are not too many routes. You can, from Tallinn, you can drive, I would say 150 kilometers, and also to Tartu. And from Tartu, I think you can go to Riga. I personally haven't done it, so I can't confirm. And you can by train also go to the east. But there are buses going to every small place, not so frequently, but the buses are on time. You can find the schedules really easily, and I think it's quite easy.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. I mean, obviously it's easy to drive around, but sometimes when you come in, and especially now, you can travel by train as well. Jan, I don't want to ignore Tallinn. We've talked a lot about the wild landscape and we start to run out of time soon, but let's talk a little bit about Tallinn. It's obviously an incredibly beautiful city. I think most people would kind of have an idea of what it looks like. It's historic, it's beautiful. What should you absolutely have on your list to see when you visit Tallinn? And is there any kind of secret spots that you can let our audience into?
Well, when you are visiting Tallinn, you're not going to come around the old town. So which is very compact and very historic, has a basically unchanged street network of the 15th, 1600s. So, but once you get out of the old town, there are a few I wouldn't even say secret tips, but kind of areas that have really showed themselves from a good side to developing in the last 20, even 30 years. And these would be a real shame to miss, because we do have a lot of modern architecture, and it's quite nice in the Rotterdam quarter, which is relatively close to the old town. You basically get out of the old town, and on the other side of the road is a enclosed little quarter, former industrial area that is now being was totally redone, but they kept the old facades. So you still have this kind of a feeling, these close by old limestone buildings, and on top of those and inside of those, most modern buildings you can see around that place. But of course, the St. Catherine's Valley, where Peter the Great, after conquering this area here, had his palace built, his summer palace. So, well, we call it a palace. He might call it a summer house, but it's a beautiful park, and it's a Baroque ensemble with a nice museum inside the palace. And next to it is the biggest art museum, or the most important in Estonia, Kumu Kunstimuseum, which has also won international architectural prizes, and is definitely worth to see. But once when you want to get to see a bit of the, let's see, I wouldn't say urban exploring, but a bit of the beaten track, then just head north from Tallinn. You have old industrial legacy mixed with residential areas that are now yeah, I would say gentrified, and then still on the coastline you have old, even a submarine factory that has now turned into an arts and culture center, and there's still the stuff going on further north. So there is a lot to see, but also, of course, you have to figure out what is important to you. If it's more culture, then you get the Telliskivi Creative City, and if it's more cuisine, then you go to the submarine factory next to the Põhjala tap room, actually.
Of course, we come back to that again and again.
Yeah.
We're all we can meet there.
Can't get around that.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dan. That's incredibly interesting. I'm very keen. Would you say it's a good place? It sounds like you could do like a really good few city days and then go out and explore the countryside. It would be a really good itinerary. So, yeah. I'm going to have to move on to, not that it's a hardship, but I'm going to move on to questions from the audience because we've got 15 minutes left to go and there's some great questions in. Please, if you've got questions out there, please throw them into the Q&A section. I'll get to as many as I can. There's a few really interesting ones in here. How is Estonia for cyclists? Are there a lot of cycle paths or is it safe to cycle on small roads? Any of you cyclists? Have you ever run over a cyclist?
As I do usually Germans, then I have this notice that 90% of people who I see on bicycles, having the bags front and back and driving around, these are Germans. But I haven't met Brits yet. I have met some few Dutch, but I haven't heard also in the news that some cyclists would have been robbed or had a car accident. So Estonia has those European marked cycle roads that are many hundred kilometers long and bring you to the most important places. Although the cycling infrastructure yet is not really as developed as we would wish, but it's getting better near the bigger towns. Yeah.
Amazing.
One thing I noticed, the Estonian company Bolt, who have expanded sort of globally, they're big on the electric scooters. So there's a lot of scooting, and so I guess if it's good for scooters, then although I guess maybe scooters can go on the pavements as well, but there's an awful lot of that around Tallinn as well. So as a pedestrian, instead of cyclists, that you need to look out for electric scooters flying silently around you. But also they're available all over the city. So in terms of public transport, that's almost, although it's not a government thing, it's not far off, and it'll help you get around a lot quicker if you don't want to get a cab.
Yeah, and I see in the chat as well that our representatives from Visit Estonia have posted up some information about cycling in Estonia. I think there's an amazing map, actually, a kind of digital resource. If that's what you're interested in, definitely check that out. I think there's a lot of information on there. I've got a really specific question here, which I'm going to direct to Christian. It says, as Estonia has a rather unique brewing style and is relatively untouched by the craft beer revolution, is that true? I don't think it is. Does the government and the EU fund the cultural crafting heritage? So is it something that the Estonian government encourage?
Unfortunately not. Would be fantastic to be sponsored by the government to brew beers, but not really. I mean, we have a very strong home brewing culture, actually, from the 19th century, but it was lost during the Soviet times, and now even more lost after the independence. So, but we have some breweries still making the historic koduõlu, which is used basically. The farms made their own malts, and then it was all natural fermentation in big wooden barrels and wild ale. So and Saaremaa actually is still the stronghold for those beers, and one can still find this original beer from there.
Great, that's really interesting. I think there's quite a lot of beer chat going on here, so I think quite a few people are interested here. The other one I'm going to go to here, and this kind of covers a question that I wanted to ask and didn't get to, and it says, is wild camping allowed? So is wild camping allowed? Can you just take a tent and go? And where else would you recommend that people stay? Are there exciting places to stay?
Sorry, was for me or for Peter?
I did not aim that at anyone, but yeah, can you just take a tent and pitch it in Estonia?
It is kind of if you don't leave anything behind. So if you know how to do this, so it's not definitely not something I would recommend, because you might get into private property, or if you get lost in the woods. But it is definitely not forbidden per se, like in many countries, like I think in Portugal was the last one who said you're not even allowed to stay with your camping cars and next to the road. So I know that many people who drive down the Estonian coastline with campers, they say it's nice to find a spot, and if you can't, if you want to go have a sure spot, then you can use the RMK app, and it has tenting camps and places where you can park for night. There's also the app Park for Night, so you can find places over there.
Okay. And what about, now someone mentioned, so Christian, do go on.
I just wanted to add that alongside that, we have really huge infrastructure for tenting options. So I would say I was posting a link. I see also Kari from Visit Estonia has posted a link. So if you do a little homework, you will find loads of places, some of them more popular where you see people around, but some of them really far hidden away, and you can also enjoy being yourself, but still on a place where you are supposed to hike.
Okay, so yeah, so good camping infrastructure in the country.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And what about not camping? Somebody mentioned the cabins that you can rent really cheaply, which sound very like kind of Scottish bothies, where you can just turn up and stay. Are there a lot of those, and are there any other options for people who want to find unusual places to stay?
Well, also on the link that I posted, one can find options for those huts, which is really, really cool thing. Then I would say glamping is something quite popular today, where you see quite rustic but very cool openings. But what I can also say about COVID is that actually, since moving around in the countryside in Estonia has become more popular for the locals, I've seen a lot of really cool Airbnbs blooming up, made by people who usually travel, around by themselves. So a lot of beautiful touches, beautiful locations. So if you travel throughout Airbnb, one can find really, really cool places to stay.
Amazing, thank you so much. What do I want to move on to? Oh, so this is a good one. Other than Tallinn, where would you find the most interesting architecture in Estonia? It's a good question. Jan, do you have any idea?
If by interesting you mean different, then one thing is definitely very impressive is Narva, the border town, where you have this kind of a very Soviet on one side. You have 3 remaining Baroque houses of the 200 that used to be before the war, and this massive, used to be the most modern in Europe, fabric factory that was run by the Narva River. But on the way to Narva, you can visit the National Park Lahemaa, which has our manor architecture. There are 4 huge manors, all from different types and ages, and also a lot of nature. But you can find the Estonian manor and peasant architecture also over there.
Okay.
And on the way from Lahemaa to Narva, maybe visit some industrial towns for a bit like Soviet architecture, then Stalinistic architecture. There are really cool places there.
That's interesting. That's actually come up in another question, something that's relevant to that. Now, I'm going to try and pronounce this correctly. It says, is Lasmanie in the capital the most interesting place to visit in terms of Soviet heritage? I'm sure I didn't say that right. Soviet heritage in Tallinn, is that something that's easy to explore, Dan?
Lasnamäe is definitely impressive because it's so big. There's also Riismäe, which is more like an experimental project. It's built like, so when you look from top down, it's like a blossom. It means blossom hill. So there are a few places, but I think since the movie Tenet by Christopher Nolan was filmed in Estonia, Lasnamäe as a major road is quite famous. You can really see that.
Oh, that's really interesting. I did not know that. So that's really cool.
Just outside of Tallinn as well, a place that really impressed me was Hara. It's an old Soviet submarine base, and it's really odd to see now because on the day I was there in particular, it was very sunny and very calm, and so you had this sort of beautiful bay with kids learning to sail and to canoe and everything. But in the backdrop, you have this quite brutalist Soviet submarine base, and inside there's a lot of like old communist artwork and stuff like that. And it was a really big surprise. And the guy that showed me around had been a kid in the area when he grew up there. And it was really quite interesting just to see how it wasn't abandoned overnight or anything like that, but it's still very much intact. But the bay that they created in order to, or the sea barrier that they created in order to service submarines has actually now created this sort of idyllic space for kids and locals to enjoy.
A question's come up that I'm not sure I even understand the question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, in the hope that you've got an answer. It says, what is it with the big soft toy cats in the shop windows? Has this person had a weird dream about Estonia and is now asking a question? Is that a thing? Emma, I'm not sure it's a thing. Okay, well, that's good. I thought it was going to be an exciting answer, but instead Emma's, I think, had a bad dream about Estonia.
There's one thing that comes to mind was just like some, when the first wave of COVID hit, people said put teddy bears on windows so that when people go walking with children, they can see them. So I don't know from when those cats
maybe
are.
Yeah, we did that here too. Maybe it was just cats in Estonia. Everybody could only find stuffed cats. Maybe that's what's happened there. Okay, let's move on. Oh, I've got a question actually that I want to ask quickly, and it's that the Tallinn's going to be hosting the European Design Festival in 2022. Is Tallinn is it a creative hub? Would you say to people, what about kind of modern creative places to go, galleries, etc.? Is there a lot of that in Tallinn?
I mean, the place that probably, obviously the old town is beautiful and everything, but when I went down to Televiskivi, it absolutely blew my mind, the creative city down there. I was super jealous of it. Like, I don't understand why we don't have anything like that here. And it was just really, really cool, and it repurposed old buildings and great bars, galleries, studios, and of course, it's pretty hipster. Like, it's unashamedly hipster, and so there's you've got great coffee, microbreweries, gin distilleries, the lot, and all of that down there was really impressive. And instead of it just being for style for style's sake, all the stuff that was on sale and the experiences down there were great as well.
Amazing. This is a good one. I don't know. Well, let's see what the answer is. Can you speak to the local music scene? Anything from folk music to metal. So if people want to go to gigs in Estonia, see some local music, any recommendations?
Yeah, there's one folk music, definitely. Viljandi Folk is I think they're one of the biggest folk festivals in the area. And it's so in July, and it is in a beautiful small town called Viljandi, in an old ruin of a German order castle, and in lots of other places too in the town. So definitely folk. I'm not so metal oriented myself. I don't know, maybe Christian Babette knows.
I just wanted to introduce everybody to Trad Attack. You will find how Estonian folk music has been made into a really cool nowadays project by one of the most talented Estonian musics ever. So yeah, Trad Attack to be followed for sure. And then every spring we have also Tallinn Music Week in Tallinn, which is really, really cool week, full of different both local and traveling in artists. Very, very cool period to all of us.
Amazing, thank you. That was a rich answer. Look, I'm going to squeeze in one more question, and that is, if you're coming with a family, is Estonia a good destination to bring your kids to? What's that? Christina, I believe you might have children. A very lovely little girl pops up. Is it a great place to be with your family?
Sure. I mean, we spoke a lot about hiking. I'm hiking every year with my family, and I think it's beautiful to do. But then there is a very rich spa culture in Estonia, and also family spa culture. And I would say all the hospitality places really are used to having children around. So I would say it's a really nice country to travel with kids.
Yeah, I want to contribute to that. I thought, I didn't even think about it. My daughter is now a bit more than 2 years old, but a friend of mine who lives in Berlin said that like you can't imagine how difficult it is over there. People are like straight out hostile to people with children because they run around in cafes and they kind of like, you know, annoying the people who work and sit there. But in Estonia, I have never noticed something like this, and for me, it was normality, basically. So.
Okay, that's lovely to hear. I'm going to bring my kids. So, I'm going to have to wrap it up, I'm afraid. I really appreciate it. It's been such an interesting talk. I've learned so many things that I had no idea I was going to. So I'm really grateful to you all. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I've got a couple of little messages for people before everybody leaves. I believe that Angelique has posted a link to a survey in the chat. We'll also email that to you afterwards. If you fill that in, you can enter a prize draw. There's some exciting Estonian prizes to be won, and you can also win tickets to the National Geographic Traveller Food Festival if you're in the UK. So yeah, thank you once again to our panel. Thank you, Pip, Jan, Christian, and Jamie. Really appreciate it. And thank you, of course, to our sponsor, Visit Estonia, who have helped us. You know, we've set up this event together. I'm really happy to introduce everyone to Estonia. We've got another event coming up on the 23rd of November. There should be a slide popping up any minute now to show you a beautiful picture of it. It hasn't been there, but imagine, if you will, Saskatchewan, which I think might in some ways be quite similar to Estonia by the sounds of it. That's on the 23rd of November. The tickets for that, it's another free event. The tickets for that will be available in the next day or so. If you've signed up for this event, we'll send you a quick email and let you know when booking for that is open. But that's going to be a real fun one, just like this, Travel Geeks again. And yeah, I think that's everything. I'm going to say thank you very much and good night, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.